I am just so happy to see all of you and so delighted that spring is for real. That's my great happiness this morning. And I want to welcome all of you here to Beverly Unitarian Zoom service. My name is Julia Jones. I am your ministerial intern. I am so glad to be here with you. As all of you know, but folks who are maybe newer may not be as clear on, we are a Unitarian Universalist congregation. Children, youth, adults, many races, many religions, many identities, genders, orientations, experiences, and traditions. And we celebrate that diversity of beliefs. We strive always to make space for more. All of you are sacred, and all of you personally is sacred to us. You are welcome here. Whatever your past or present is like, we invite you to walk into the future with us. Like other UU congregations, we affirm 7 principles, which aren't a doctrine or a dogma. They're shared values, a moral guide. If you'd like to learn more about the principles, or if maybe it's been a long time since you took a look at them, they're always available at www.uua.org. Our minister is the Reverend David Schwartz. I am delighted to be helping with service this morning. We will be having a coffee hour right here in this same room at the end of service, so you can just stick around to chat, or you can go on with your day with no harm, no foul. We will be enjoying a great deal of wonderful music this morning from Jeff Penzino and Katrina Pavlik, from Maria Moser, and you'll get to hear a little squeak of something I recorded with a friend in Maryland before moving here. So that's a fun thing to share, to get to know one another a little bit better. For now, let's take a little bit of a deep breath in. Consciously set aside anything that may be keeping you half out of the room this morning. I'm pausing so I can do it too. Let us now join together in spirit and prepare our hearts and minds for worship. Friends, won't you join me in our chalice lighting words? They are in the chat. We light this chalice in celebration of the gift of life. May its light be a beacon of hope, a sign of our quest for truth and meaning. Infinite love, be here with us now.
On this May Day weekend in Chicago, we remember that the power of people can always overcome the people in power. We remember that when each of us are rooted in our deepest convictions and connected with each other and clear-eyed about the world we actually live in, we can remake it for the better, brick by brick, millimeter by slow millimeter. And in that spirit, I share this invitation, these words for our call to worship. Come in. Come in, even virtually, into this house of memory and of hope. Come in, whoever you are. Whether it's your first time in worship here or your 1,000th, come in with whatever struggles are living inside. Bring them with you. Come in, set them down a minute. The foundations are strong enough to hold whatever troubles you have. Altogether, we can do it. Set them down. They'll wait for you. Come in with disappointment and disillusionment and despair. Don't pretend those aren't real. Come in with disaster and disability and disturbed heart and distant hopes. Don't leave the stuff behind. Disdain, disbelief, dysfunction, disconnection. You're a human being just like all the rest of us, and you're in the right place just as you are, beloved. no exceptions. You're in the right place to grow your soul, to heal the world. We're just beginning. Like the spring out there that's happened over and over and over and over again, and is happening just for the very first time right now. Weary with years, we've only just begun. Fresh with hope, we've only just begun. For here, you need not hide nor pretend, nor be anything other than who you are and who you're called to be. Come, let us worship.
Waited longer for lesser things, but here I am. Who really knows what tomorrow brings? But here I am. Just in case you were wondering, just in case you got lost again, just in case you run out of friends, here I am. So easy just to rip and to tear, so here I am. What you need the most disappears into thin air, so here I am. Maps and compasses may stay true, doesn't really matter what you do. I have never forgotten you. Here I am. Some days our reach is bound to far exceed our grasp. Gave up hoping long ago that I could fix the past. Here I Today I called you for the very first time in a million years. You would never know if I told you so about these million tears. Life doesn't wave as it's speeding by. Better grab on fast and hold on tight. Don't ever forget to fight this good fight. Here I am. Here I am. Here I am.
In our congregation, in our tradition, we don't have much of a liturgical calendar that defines the different seasons and phases of the year. But we certainly do have one season that comes each year that we take care not to forget, and that is pledge drive season. The season when each of us makes a financial commitment of what we'll do to support the common work of the church over the coming year, a pledge of support for the fiscal year that starts July 1st. We do this not because I want $5,000 sneakers paid for by you. not for any of those grandiose reasons, but because sustaining this community in our home together takes ordinary work, and money doesn't need to be something that is filled with guilt or shame or avoidance, but just that we talk about it forthrightly, because the contributions that we make to have this church home happen are in order to sustain our shared life together. So I'm delighted this morning to share a pledge testimonial from Mary, talking a little bit about that, joined by Kat.
When you choose organic produce from the supermarket, you pay a little extra for that food. The upcharge pays for cleaner land, more sustainable agriculture, and less harmful additives in your body. When you pledge to BUC, your money is applied to the many material needs of the church that are necessary to keep the doors open. The miraculous result? Our community goes inside. We're challenged, lifted, and tickled by Reverend David. We love and support one another, form warm bonds, and work towards a more sustainable future in this uncertain world. See you soon.
If you haven't yet made a pledge, I invite you to stop in at the website to fill out an online pledge form or to check your emails from the information that you can find from the team putting it together this year. And I'll share on their behalf that we are well on our way and on the path. It is very, very achievable to make it to our goal on the pledge drive of $100,000 for this coming year. We're looking not for equal gifts and not for you to give until you hurt, but for equal generosity and to give until you feel good. Thanks.
Friends, please join me in the words of our covenant. You'll find the words in the chat if you need a little refresher. Love is the spirit of this church, and service is its law. This is our great covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth in love, and to help one another. Now is our messy and delightful moment to greet one another, even in this weird digital space. You may be tempted to turn to the person to your left or your right, which is absolutely fine. Just remember that their left and right boxes may not be the same as yours. So if they're not turning back to you, it's not personal. Zoom is weird. Please, please, please greet one another with volume, enthusiasm, and all the joy that I know is there when you see each other.
Go for it. Morning.
Hi, everybody.
Morning.
Morning.
Harry.
Hey, Pilot, you want to hear a story? I'm not sure. You have to hear a story regardless of whether you want to or not. This is the time that serves. Come here, buddy. I'm going to tell you a story about sustaining the tree of life. Ready? You have to sit down though. Buddy, sit. There we go. There we go. Okay, so here's the story. Here's what it's about. The tree stood in the middle of the village, and its trunk was so large that it took 6 people or dogs holding hands or paws to reach all the way around it. Its roots were strong and wide, much like you yourself, and the branches spread out over the village square, offering shelter from the rain, shade from the sun. It was full of fruit that was juicy, sweet, and plentiful, and the people of the village loved the tree. Children played beneath it, climbed its lowest branches. Adults shooed the dogs away from the trunk when they came too close. Young people knew that if you whispered your dreams to the tree, they were more likely to come true. And people who proclaimed their love or friendship beneath its branches found their relationships to be more nourishing, and elders discovered that their sweetest memories could be counted on when they were near this great tree. The tree had been witness to so much, and when the breeze blew through its branches, you could hear the echoes of generations, laughter and conversations and dreams and prayers, and babies and puppies. Animals loved the tree too. Rabbits lived in burrows beneath its roots, and squirrels and monkeys lived in the branches, and bats and birds flew in to eat the abundant fruit, and the tree just seemed to buzz with life. One day, a traveling merchant arrived in the village, and he rested in the shade, and he ate 2 pieces of this delicious fruit. This fruit is incredible, he said, super tasty. I would like to sell some of this in the next villages that I visit. Who owns this tree? And someone said, no one owns this tree. If anything, we belong to it. Well then, said the merchant, if no one owns this tree, then no one will mind if I pick all the fruit and take it with me to the next village to sell. Well, I mind, said the villager who had spoken before, and today I'm a keeper of the tree. Keeper of the tree. What do you mean, said the merchant, keeper of the tree? And the villager said, we each take our turn. No one does it all the time. We could never own it, but we take our turn being here with the tree. We're here as protectors, as sustainers. That's ridiculous, said the merchant. This tree does not need you. You could just take whatever you want. The merchant said, I've read The Giving Tree. You just take and take until you have everything that you want. The tree's going to be fine. The villager couldn't be persuaded. The villager said, perhaps you have not read the end of The Giving Tree. This tree isn't like that. We don't come here to take from it, even though we do receive so much. We're keepers of the tree because this is where we're nourished. This place here together is where some of our most precious memories are. This is where our people have dreamed. This is where our people have dreamed and hoped, and where we come to remember who we want to become. Well, said the merchant, you may think that this tree is very special, but it still doesn't need you to sit with it. This is preposterous. Yeah, said the villager. Look, the tree may not need me, right? But what about the others who come by? Just this morning, I was able to sit with a woman whose heart was heavy with worry. And had I not been here, had this not been a place for her to come to, she would have had to carry that weight alone. And then this afternoon, a tired couple came by and sat with me and rested while their kids ran around like mad. And then an elder came by and we watched the birds in the branches together. And now you're here and you are confused about what this tree is and how to be with it. You came here hoping to take the parts of it that you liked. But imagine if you arrived and hadn't found anyone to talk with. You might have continued thinking that everything you do is all about you. But luckily for you, I'm here to let you know that when you care for the tree of life, my friend, it becomes about so much more than just you. And the merchant, Pilate, do you know what the merchant did? The merchant sat for a while in the shade, thinking about these ideas that felt new and a little challenging. And as the sun went down, he picked up his bag and headed out of town, whistling a song that he hadn't thought of in years. And on his way, he shared a smile with each person he met, his heart feeling strangely light and joyful. And the people of the village they continued to sustain the tree of life, to care for one another, and to share their gifts with grace and gratitude. May it be so for us as well, tending the tree of the life of this community. What do you think, Pilate? Pilate is unimpressed. Pilate's expression is something like, yeah, I knew that already.
Over the next several weeks, college students who've actually studied on campus this year will begin to return home. Public school years will come to a close. I know because I hear the countdown every day. Teachers will enter final grades on the most difficult year they've probably ever had in the classroom. And all these folks will return home to their lives outside of school, carrying the baggage of the year with them. Every year changes students and teachers of every age. I feel confident in saying that this year will likely have wrought more change than usual. And that fact may change homecoming. Summer activities may be different. Likes and dislikes may have shifted. Wants and needs may feel strange and unusual. Sorrows and loss have made their mark, and still, it's time to come home. At its best, home is a place of grace and patience, a place where we can return even when we are messy and unsure, a place where our baggage will not be seen as a burden, and where we can always grow and change. It's my hope in the months to come that we can make that home again in person at BUC. That place where we can come, changed as we undoubtedly are by this year of challenge and loss, disoriented by our time apart, and yet committed to moving forward together. Friends, please join me in the attitude of prayer. Spirit of life and creator of all that is holy, we are grateful for this chance to be together and for the promise of one another's presence in the future. We eagerly await our homecoming. As we begin to gather together in person, help us to see one another through the eyes of grace. Help us to ease one another's burdens and heal one another's hurts. Help us to be flexible in our hearts and in our expectations, that we might make our home safe for all the change these months have wrought. Remind us that we are enough, and that what we, even in our changed and changing selves, have a place to rest and rebuild, always together. Amen. Friends, let us build our house of love together here in this space by sharing that which we celebrate and the burdens that feel too heavy to bear alone. Feel free to share your joys and sorrows in the chat or aloud. Or if there's something too tender to give voice or words just yet, simply type I so that we might hold you in our shared light. Please share your joys and sorrows now.
Beggars Writer's blocks and blind man's fancy, lost in corners and beacon light, broken stars and buckeye blossoms blooming on the tree of life, tree of life, quilted by the lantern light, every stitch a leaf upon the tree of life. Stitch away, sister, stitch away. Hattie's choice and high hosanna, hills and valleys and heart's delight, hummingbird in honeysuckle, blooming on the tree of life, quilted by the lantern light, every stitch a leaf upon the tree of life. Stitch away, sister, stitch away. We're only known as someone's mother, someone's daughter, or someone's wife, but with our hands and with our vision, we make the patterns on the tree of life, quilted by the lantern light, every stitch a leaf upon the tree of life. Stitch away, sister, stitch away. Tree of life, quilted by the lantern light, every stitch a leaf upon the tree of life. Stitch away, sister, stitch away.
I am delighted this morning to lead us in welcoming another new member into membership in this community. Vicki, it is such a pleasure to welcome you into membership, to see your engagement and depth and relationship in this community. Sometimes new members join and a good chunk of the congregation looks around and says, wait, they weren't a member already? Vicki, we, all of us as a congregation, welcome you this morning to affirm in ceremony what you have already made real in your individual life, which is your commitment to this congregation and to this liberal faith and way of life. Outwardly, what you do to become a member is simple. You just sign your name in a book, but we remember that folks come to this step by many different paths. Some people join the congregation easily. You find your people and you unite with them, and some people arrive in this house after a long road. And becoming a member is a major commitment at the end of a pilgrimage that may have been decades. We're here gathered together to do the mundane and the holy work of making a life, to weep together and laugh together, sing together, we will again someday, and sit silent together, and serve on committees, yes, and pledge our time and treasure, and eat pancakes, and sell Christmas trees, and mourn our dead. bless our children, and keep our hearts broken open to the world. We're here to do the holy and the mundane work of making a life together.
Neither churches nor their members are perfect. If you hang around here long enough, one of two things, and possibly both, may happen to you. Eventually, the church may disappoint you, or you may disappoint the church. A time may come that we fail to act or respond to something you are sure we should have. A time may come when you can't do something the church asks of you, or perhaps you don't do it as well as we'd hope. It is not that what happens next. As long as we live in a covenanted community seeking right relationship, we have a future. If we are not committed to being together, just about anything can tear us apart. Welcoming a new member is not fundamentally about marketing. It is about belonging. Can a newcomer walking through our doors cross a difficult chasm from outsider to insider? Can that person belong? Even if they share our values and get fed by worship, if the congregation feels like a club, we will only keep the club members as we dwindle.
This morning, we do not dwindle, and we remember we are not a club, but a congregation, as we expand the circle of belonging and welcome Vicky into membership.
Thank you.
To become a member, and this is as much a reminder for the rest of us as for her, is to pledge yourself to the common good of this church. You're not just a consumer, you're a co-creator. To be a member means to welcome the next people coming through our doors. Vicky will sign the membership books that date back to the 1950s that record generations of lives to which you are now inheritors. And Vicky, by signing your name, you will join us and them. Soon, we're going to meet up at the castle and do just that, but membership isn't about something that I do or that you and I do. It's about a relationship between you and the whole congregation, and the whole congregation and you. It's a commitment to be in relationship together. And so in token of that, let me ask you, the gathered members of this congregation, will you, each and all of you, welcome Vicky as a member? Will you affirm her membership and pledge to support her? Will you let yourself be known and get to know her? Will you remember that we are one people bound together by the promises we make to one another? If you will make this commitment to Vicky, I invite you in the chat or to unmute yourself and give an enthusiastic yes.
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 Yes. Yes. Yes.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Vicky, let's spotlight you so everyone can see you. Vicky, will you accept the gifts and responsibilities of membership? And will you accept our shared covenant, our shared promises of love and respect and service?
Yes, I will.
Connection be strengthened day by day and year by year. And will you pledge to support our congregation and the association of which we're a part as you're able? If so, I invite you to give an enthusiastic yes.
Yes.
Welcome, 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 welcome. It's good to have you coming home and all of us coming back home to community together again.
I'm sitting in the railway station, got a ticket for my destination. On a tour of one-night stands, my suitcase and guitar in hand. Every step is neatly planned for a poet and a one-man band. Homeward bound, I wish I was homeward bound. Home, where my thoughts escaping. Home, where my music's playing. Home, where my love lies waiting silently for me. Tonight I'll sing my songs again, I'll play the game and pretend. But all my words come back to me in shades of mediocrity. Like emptiness and harmony, I need someone to comfort me. Homeward bound, I wish I was homeward bound. Home, where my thoughts are escaping. Home, where my music's playing. Home, where my love lies waiting silently for me. Silently for me.
The Christian mystic and monk Thomas Merton called soul, spirit, soul, called it true self. Buddhists talk about soul sometimes as original nature, that thing, that person, that self that you are before all the crud of the world gets in the way, a wave on an ocean of humanity. Quakers talk about soul as the inner teacher, the inner light. They say that there's that of God in each of us. And so traditionally, they used to address each other as thee and thou, not sir or ma'am or doctor or reverend, thee and thou. Because in every face that they meet, they're not just meeting flesh, but soul spark of the divine inside. Humanists, we try to talk about this with unpoetic language sometimes, still pointing towards something transcendent, and call this soul stuff self-identity, living with integrity, reaching toward the unrealized hidden wholeness, becoming persons among persons. Otis Redding called soul funky secular testifying. I think he was talking about something else, but it's pointing to the same sort of experience that Christians and Buddhists and Quakers and humanists and Otis too, in good universalist fashion, I think they're pointing toward that same lived reality and using different words to talk about whatever that is inside us. The truth is, I don't especially care about what name you give to that thing. And that's just not me. We're a theologically plural tradition. We try real hard not to get stuck on the language we use, but the thing that it's pointing towards. At the end of the day, the terminology doesn't matter, but what matters is that we name it. And that's why we say in our mission here in this congregation that our mission, our purpose, our focus, the compass heading that we follow, our mission is on the one hand to help heal the world, and on the other to grow our spirits, to grow our souls, to grow, I think, that thing that wants to keep us rooted in the ground of our own being, that thing that resists intellect and ego trying to uproot us from who we are, to grow a soul that wants to keep us connected to the community in which we find life, to grow a soul that understands relationships are necessary if we are to thrive, no matter how loudly the world says to go it alone. gathered to grow a soul that wants to tell us the truth about ourselves and our world and the relationship between the two, even though that's not easy to hear all the time. This tree of life around which we gather, which is maybe our building, but certainly our community, owned by none of us and by all of us, is the space to come back to our souls over and over against all the pressures of the world that blindly conspire to separate us from ourselves. Years and years, more years ago than I want to count anymore, I was exploring the possibility of being a teacher. I was doing my year of student teaching, high school freshman history. And I overheard two freshmen talking with each other in study hall in the first week of school. These are two kids who have been in high school for like 3 days so far. And one of them says to the other, "I can't wait until we're seniors. They can do so much. And we're like, ugh." There is no language from Shakespeare or the King James Bible that can capture the poetic depth of emotion contained in "we're like, ugh." The belief that what they had now was worthless, or at best only the sort of provisional value, the confidence that they had none of the benefits, the advantages, the privileges that surely would come in time. They weren't adults like those high school seniors were. There's so much "we're like, ugh." It's a disgust with where they were, but more than that, below that, is a total trust and belief in the future. These were two kids who really, honestly, genuinely, wholly believed that when they were seniors in high school, everything would be better than when they were freshmen. Which we can laugh at because most of us discovered at age 18 that it was really the 21-year-olds who had it made. And then by age 21, it was the 25-year-olds who turned out to be the people living a good life and didn't have trouble renting a car. And then by 25, we looked maybe fondly back on freshman year of high school when everything was simple. If only we could get back to that again. This promise of future wholeness, of the good life, it's so close, and it is always, always, always out of reach. The great high school literature book, F. Scott Fitzgerald's Great Gatsby, is just about this idea. The closing lines, he's talking about this hero who believed in a future that year by year recedes before us. And it eluded us then, these are Fitzgerald's words, a future that year by year recedes before us. It eluded us then, but no matter, tomorrow we will run faster, stretch our arms out further, and one fine morning, and then that whole thought just ends with a long dash trailing off into silence just ahead of us. So close, we can almost touch it, just out of reach, but visible, a promised future. Better job, a little bit more money, pay off the credit cards, buy a new house, go on longer vacations, have that little place in the country. These things may have eluded us before, but that's no matter. Tomorrow, we will run faster, stretch our arms out further, and one fine morning, and that trails off into silence, just the same way the future recedes before us year by year. And if we measure ourselves only against a vision of that future, we never arrive. The finish line perpetually moves backwards. When I finished divinity school, when I finished seminary in 2006 in Boston, we moved out to Minnesota, and Terry and I, before we had kids, she did her internship at a UU church out there in St. Paul, and I went to work at Target's headquarters doing learning and development for the income, for the health insurance, as a sort of a placeholder job. In those first months, I told myself it was a placeholder job as I commuted into the office. I knew that I'd soon be off to my own internship, moving on towards ministry. My destination was so clear. That's foreshadowing. In that first year, I was wrapped up so quickly in the work of that place, in the meetings, in the excitement of problems to solve and travel. They sent me to places I'd never been before, and big budgets, and my own ambition that I had not even known was there in me. I got in touch with the secret type A side of myself that had pretended otherwise by telling me, no, David, you don't have to compete, just win. So ridiculous. But the work was full and busy, and there was always one more project and one more deadline and one more possible reward that came with those things. If you are a computer gamer, if you play video games, if you've ever been sucked into Bejeweled on your phone or Pokemon or anything else, you know this concept of leveling up, that inside the game, there's always just one more item to collect, one more quest to solve, one more level to beat, and you chase it and fall deeper and deeper and deeper into the game. I was always almost there in those first years at Target. The next threshold would be the one that I would cross and then be finished, always. And there was always a next threshold. It's easy to get caught up in the grandeur of all that, the destination, the trap of being always almost there, the trap that separates you from your spirit and your soul and who you are and what you're about, because you don't have time for those things. There's work to be done. There's a level to beat to go on to the next level. There's a season to get through. There's an objective, and then another, and another, and another, and another. Let me tell you a story, though, of what it looks like not to act that way, even when it feels that way. 3 weeks before you hired me as your minister in 2017, I think it was 3 weeks, it might have been 2 weeks before y'all hired me, you learned that this building was crumbling from the inside. You learned that without a repair project that was more than 5 times your budget, it was going to come crumbling down. And I remember that first year with you all very, very well in that discernment, listening, as we talked to each other in small groups and one-on-one, and y'all shared your love and sometimes your loathing for the building. And some worried that this would be the end of the congregation. And we talked about the different outcomes that could result, staying or going or restoring, trying and failing. And that it would be okay. I went back in October 2017. Apparently this is what I said. I said, I know one thing for certain already, this soon being with you, which is that we're going to be okay. And if the cost is enough for us to raise, we'll raise it and figure it out and be okay. And if the cost means we have to go raise money from external groups, a thing we had never done before and churches simply don't do, we'll figure it out and be okay. And if the cost is so high there's no path to raise it, we'll figure it out and be okay. And if we attempt to do it and fail in the attempt, we'll be okay. And if the building falls down tonight, we'll figure it out and be okay. Because we as a church don't exist to serve the needs of the castle. Castle serves the needs of the church. And you know that. Your priorities are in the right order. Sometimes I think crisis doesn't necessarily bring out the best or the worst of people, but like power, it just reveals who y'all are, only more so. Those 3 years of work to discern what we were going to do with the building as a community, they could have been 3 years of business meetings and plannings only. It's not that that stuff didn't happen. They could have been 3 years where we said to each other, the mission of the church, we just can't engage with it right now. It's too important to tend to the building, to pay attention to the mission. It's too important that we get through this moment. And once we get to the other side of it, then we can go back to being a congregation again. Once we figure out if we're going to stay or go, then we can go back to being a church. Once we've raised the money, then we can go back to being a church. Once we've finished building the repairs, then we can go back to being a church. Once we've made it to the far side of pandemic, then we can go back to being a church again. One fine morning, we'll run a little faster and we'll stretch our arms out a little farther, and then we will have leveled up and made it. But friends, that's not what you did. The discernment that you made in staying wasn't just an affirmation that as stewards of the castle, as caretakers of it, it's our time and turn to care for the building. It was deeper than that too. It was the affirmation and the discernment that said, our church isn't the building. Our church is this community. The building, like the tree of life, makes possible all of these things that we gather to do. Your discernment, not just in that first year of figuring out what to do, but all the way through the process, up to and including this god-awful 1.5 years of pandemic, has been the discernment that chooses to be a community who keeps on growing our spirits and serving the world right here, one day at a time, not after we finish leveling up, not after everything's all done, but right here in the thick of it, in the midst of it. You've made it this far on the path by not waiting to be a church until you made it this far on the path, but by doing that steady, quiet work all the way along. That's why I wasn't worried in 2017, because I saw then, I hoped then, and I know for a fact now, 4 years later, still meeting virtually, that you're a community of people led by your mission, who tend carefully to the urgencies and needs of the moment. Y'all aren't starry-eyed and naive about what it takes, but who are led by that mission. Reopening when it happens, as we look towards outside services in summer, as we look hopefully, assuming the world doesn't fall apart again, as we look forward hopefully to reopening in the fall, in hybrid services where we can gather in person and stream online for folks who can't be there. That's not the end either. That's not the senior year of this church. That's going to be the next moment. And the way we make it through that moment will be the same way that we've made it all the way up here. What's next for us? Sure, a whole lot of logistical questions to solve about how we're going to make it happen. But what's really next for us is the same thing that we've kept faith with, not just these last 4 years, but through generations of ancestors who've held and sustained this community and passed it to us. It's simple, really, and profoundly complicated to grow our spirits and to help heal the world in community. Amen.
I'll light the fire. You place the flowers in the vase that you bought today. Staring at the fire for hours and hours while I listen to you play your love songs all night long. For me, only for me. Come to me now and rest your head for just 5 minutes. Everything is done. Such a cozy room. The windows are illuminated by the evening sunshine through them. Fiery gems for you, only for you. Our house is a very, very, very fine house with 2 cats in the yard. Life used to be so hard. Now everything is easy 'cause of you. And la 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 Our house is a very, very, very fine house with 2 cats in the yard. Life used to be so hard. Now everything is easy 'cause of you. And I'll light the fire while you place the flowers in the vase that you bought today.
Please join me in our chalice extinguishing words. You'll find them in the chat. Our worship is ended. Our service begins. That's worth a repeat. Our worship is ended. Our service begins.
It is a simple and difficult faith that we follow. Simple but not simplistic, difficult but not impossible. We follow this compass heading through the wilderness of the world, and we lose our bearings, and we have to check in back with each other again and figure out, wait, where are we going again through all this? But that's the only way to make it together. Friends, one of the challenges of serving 2 congregations is meetings overlapping. So I'm going to start our postlude, and then unfortunately I have to step away to a congregational meeting at First Unitarian. It's been such a pleasure to be with you in worship this morning. I'll see you again 2 Sundays from now.
Ours is a simple faith. Life is a short embrace. Heaven is in this place every day. Hope is the ground we till. Make each day what you will. Thankful for dreams fulfilled every day. There is no hell to fear, no judgment day drawing near. Trust that inner voice you hear every day. Life's not a goal or race, it's about heart and faith, living a life of grace every day. Trust is an open hand, making an honest stand, rooted here in the land every day. Live in the mystery, seeking the harmony here between you and me every day. Ours is a simple faith. Life is a short embrace. Heaven is in